I want to begin today's briefing by addressing the horrific shooting that took place yesterday at the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where a deranged shooter opened fire during morning mass, killing an innocent 8-year-old and 10-year-old. 14 other children and 3 adults were also injured during this horrible tragedy. This was the first morning mass of the school year for these beautiful, innocent children, and this sacred religious service was desecrated by an evil monster. We are all eternally grateful to the heroic law enforcement officers and first responders whose courage and swift response aided all of those impacted by this horrible tragedy. As Director Kash Patel confirmed yesterday, the FBI is currently investigating this shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. President Trump and the First Lady encouraged the entire nation to join all of us in praying for the victims and their families as they face unimaginable grief and loss.
That, of course, was White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt. One day after the horrific shooting at the Annunciation Catholic Grade School in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 2 children were killed and 18 were injured. The gunman, who according to court records changed his name in 2019 from Robert Westman to Robin Westman, killed himself. Westman was a former student at Annunciation Catholic Grade School. According to the Minneapolis police, authorities are evaluating a series of videos posted to YouTube by a user identified as Robin W. Authorities are working to authenticate the videos and maybe learn more about a motive for the attack. Today, Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara gave this update.
During the processing of the scene at Annunciation Church yesterday, 3 shotgun shells were recovered, along with approximately 116 rifle rounds. 1 live round was recovered from a handgun that appears to have malfunctioned as the shooter attempted to use it. This is an individual who, unfortunately, like so many other mass shooters that we have seen in this country too often and around the world, had some deranged fascination with previous mass shootings and very disturbing writings that demonstrate hatred towards many different individuals and different groups of people. Annunciation Church had a practice that once mass began, they locked the doors of the church. This incident occurred shortly after the mass was beginning. So there's no question that the fact that the doors were locked likely saved additional lives. What's particularly heinous and cowardly about this is these children were slaughtered by a shooter who could not see them. He was standing outside of the building, firing through very narrow church windows. The shooter did attend mass there previously. The shooter did attend school, and the shooter's mother was an employee of the parish previously for some time. It is very clear that this shooter had the intention to terrorize those innocent children.
Also today, officials from Hennepin County Medical Center in Minneapolis gave this update on the victims.
We currently have 9 patients that were involved in the shooting yesterday. 6 of those patients are in satisfactory condition. 5 of those patients are children. We have 2 patients in serious condition, 1 adult and 1 child, and we have 1 child in critical condition presently.
I think there's a lot of maybe unrecognized heroes in this event, along with the children that were protecting other children, which is really amazing to hear about. I might be saying too much, but we had 1 kid that covered up another kid and took a shotgun blast to his back and things like that, and they were helping each other out.
Journalist, former colleague of mine, and my very good friend, Geraldo Rivera, joins me. Geraldo, nice to see you.
Hi, Greta.
Geraldo,
So
you
good
and
to see
I
you.
go back. It's nice to see you. We go back pretty far, and you know, the first thing I think of is you probably covered Columbine in Colorado, is my guess. So I mean, your thought about all these shootings that you and I have covered at schools all these years.
Absolutely horrifying, Greta. Let me just say, first of all, how nice to see you. Sorry under these circumstances, but it's something that is the stuff of nightmares. As the father of 5 myself, I had a sleepless night last night. I literally could not fall asleep but for thinking of those children as they sat in the pews the first mass of the school year, and they're being killed. They're being picked off by this savage, this beast, this animal. It's just so deeply troubling to me, and frustrating, and just worrisome, Greta.
I admire the police officers on this case. I admire the police officers in all of them, but these police officers have been quite sober and factual and serious, and and seem informed and capable. And they did everything they could to protect those children. I tip my hat to them in Minneapolis.
They also had a very quick reaction, very quick response time. 3 minutes, they were there from the first shot, first 911 call. They were there. I believe that there is no way to stop these maniacs. But I think that there's a couple of things that we could do that we're not doing. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I want an armed guard in front of every one of these parishes or temples or synagogues when there is a service going on. There are so many nut jobs out there who have so many grievances, these real imagined grievances. Whatever, I don't know what poisoned the mind of this kid, but it is despicable what he did. The hateful rhetoric, his spewing of this garbage about kill Trump and Jews and Israel and burn this and that. This is an animal, self-involved, selfish, narcissistic, and then he goes and he writes a note on his so-called manifesto where he apologizes for the inconvenience that he causes. It's just it's beyond. You would think back to those days of Columbine, Greta, when we saw with shocking clarity how vulnerable students were in a situation where a gunner bent on causing havoc and pain. In that case, it was two kids in the school that did this, did the dirty deed. More often, it's the loner, like this guy. Whatever demons he had, whatever troubles he had. And the other thing I wonder about is, how did he assemble this arsenal with the notes and the manifesto and the extra capacity magazines and all the rest of it without anybody knowing, without anybody noticing? That's the first line of defense. Someone sees something and says something.
I do not believe that he got up yesterday morning and for the first time decided he was going to do this. For the first time, he got the gun. For the first time, write the manifesto. I mean, this had been going on for some time. Somebody must have seen something, and something unusual. And I know we haven't seen his parents, and I'm sure that his parents are quite grief-stricken. But at some point, to protect the children of other parents, what did the parents know about this kid? What was he doing? What was he showing? I think the parents need to answer questions.
Me too. And you mentioned how the great capability and the sensitivity of the officials at every level, federal, state, local, school level, neighborhood level, they were so consistently competent and responsible. The one person you have not heard a peep from, though, is this guy's mother. The person who apparently was as close to him or closer than anybody else, and we haven't heard from her yet. Is she lawyered up? What's going on? We need to know why this person. It's not going to. I don't think that we can stop these deeds. Once Columbine, the cat was out of the bag. Once people equated the misery that they could inflict with a heavy weapon, then our kids were vulnerable. But I think, God, we've got to protect them more stringently than we protect our fortunes. You protect banks. You put people with guns in front of banks. I think that's the only way. You're not going to have gun control. You're not going to get rid of extended magazines, extra capacity magazines. Nothing. That's not going to happen. It's not 1994 anymore. But we've got to deal with the reality, the hand that we are dealt. So you do two things. Number one is the guard in front of the school. Number two is every parent, every family member, if you see an aberrant conduct that's freaky, don't turn away. Don't turn the channel.
And if you do,
you have a responsibility.
And if you do it.
It's
if you do it, shouldn't there be some
can I just tell you this one thing, Greta?
Yeah, go ahead.
The parochial school, the big parochial school with the church near here. I heard from one of the parents there that they had the morning mass today here in Cleveland Heights or University Heights. There were 4 police cars around the church for this service. 4 cop cars. Maybe that's an overreaction, but I'll take one in every one of these places where people congregate, Greta.
Geraldo Rivera, thank you. And as a sort of a note to the viewers, I should tell you, Geraldo really is one of the favorite colleagues of all of us, who's ever worked with him. Geraldo, always nice to see you.
I feel the same to you. I feel the same to you.
Thank you, Geraldo.
Greta. It's a pleasure being with you.
CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp joins me. Nice to see you, Matt.
Greta, I'm really nice too.
You're not that nice. No, you are nice. What do you think about all? I mean, it's just horrible. And the chief said that he had a fascination with all the other shootings. So I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe we shouldn't be reporting as intensively as we do the others. But I don't see him as a big, probably Newsmax, CNN, Fox fan, but he sees it online, and that's not the answer.
I think there are too many taboos that we're just really not allowed to talk about. Honestly, I mean, I don't usually agree with Geraldo Rivera, but it's pretty obvious.
You'd like him, though.
I do. I actually do know him, and I do like him. But I actually do think he's right. We got to harden these locations. We've been talking about this for more than a decade. We just need to do it. We need to find the money. Tim Walz was able to find guards at public schools. He didn't want to extend that to Catholic schools. I view that as discrimination. The Catholic schools have to follow all the laws in the state. Those kids should be protected too. And then the bishops should stand up, and the pastors, and find the money themselves. I have found a resistance in this area of the country towards doing that because everyone's so afraid of having an armed guard and what the legal consequences are. But I'd rather take that, and even if there's mistakes with that, bad policing, bad security guard work, than seeing what happened here. The other thing we have to look at, Greta, is, we medicate our kids more than any other country in the world, and we're all afraid to talk about it. I don't know why we're afraid to talk about it, but this is a big problem. This young man was on a lot of drugs. When you try to transition your gender, you take a lot of drugs for that. He talked about the fact that he was trying to stop vaping, or knew that vaping was destroying him, and he was on basically marijuana, and he thought that was having a bad impact. He was a miserable kid. I don't like calling him a monster or these types of questions. He's still a human being. It's just, he's a victim in this way. I'm going to hold him accountable for his terrible actions, so he's not a victim for that. But he's a victim in a way of people not leveling with him. No, you're not going to be able to change your gender. No, taking all these drugs isn't going to make it better. No, being addicted to pot isn't going to make it better. No lashing out and violence isn't going to make it better.
Matt, if you came in here with a gun and started acting weird and said you had a lot of guns, you started doing a lot of weird things, I would call the police.
What's wrong with people?
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's what then I guess I go back to the
There's so many indicators here.
I don't think he woke up I keep saying I don't think he woke up that morning exhibiting this behavior. I think there was a runway. And, why is everybody silent? And, frankly, his family.
Look, every once in a while, you've covered cases for a long time. Sometimes it really shocks you when you find someone commit terrible violence. It was the last person you would have picked. But in most cases, especially these massive shootings, these kids, there are trends and there are characteristics. One of them is this gender modification drug regime. Another thing are kids that are bullied and unaccepted, which is not appropriate for those kids to have to go through. But many times these kids give many signs, and I don't think we should be attacking the mother. I can understand why we all want to hear from the mother, but if I were the parent in this case, these parents are oftentimes getting sued because of different gun laws that allow them now to go after the parents. So they're going to shut down, and they're not going to talk either. But my guess is everybody went to school with this person and was aware of this person, knew they were a ticking time bomb.
It's like I think about when I went to school, we never had any guards, we didn't have locks, we didn't have anything. I mean, what a different time it is. These kids are, imagine going to kids and seeing, it's going to have to be that, seeing armed guards.
So what's changed in society? First change is the phones and the fact that kids are all over the phones. Drugs were prevalent for a long time.
But tamer.
Different.
Yes,
different. Cigarettes and stuff like that. Now you're talking about these people are on daily medication. We drug our kids at a higher rate than any country in the world. We have to scrutinize that. I think Bobby Kennedy's trying to do that. But there's some real questions here. I think we're giving kids the wrong answers and the wrong treatments. And this kind of reaction to don't tell me you're going to pray for me. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to pray yourself. But if somebody loves you enough to want to pray for you, why do you have to be so nasty about that? Sometimes people feel hopeless. That's all they got.
I do not like to have a parent on who's lost a child.
Because how are you going to really talk to them?
What do you say? I didn't like the other night it was very difficult. There was a woman who was Gold Star family. She lost her son at Abbey, and she had a very important message because I wanted her to be able to tell everybody about her son, about his sacrifice and the impact. And I thought it was very important. But you don't even know what to say to these parents. What's the first question? What do you say?
If I saw this woman who's the mother of this shooter,
she's easier.
I feel like I just want to hug her because my guess. The
mother of the shooter?
My guess is she tried. Mothers try. She just made all the wrong moves.
But all you do is pick up a phone call, maybe anonymously. My child is acting odd or doing this. I'm making the assumption that there was something to be seen, but I think you've got to protect other children.
Can I bring us something else?
Yeah.
We have AI and all these tools. This person is posting all this stuff on social media. Don't tell me that they don't have the technology to figure out these outliers in our society that are literally saying they're going to kill people.
Well, that's another thing, is that there's an AI, I think I'm going to do the story tomorrow about AI where it taught someone how to commit suicide.
Right, so the question is then how do the authorities not use those tools, right, in cases like this? The other thing is, the constant refrain from these leftist political people about, gun control. Minnesota is run by all very left-wing Democrats statewide, almost their entire congressional delegation. Tim Walz obviously ran for vice president. Even in a state where they have very, very strict laws on guns, the fact is this: we don't have a gun problem in this country. We have a serious societal mental health problem. I don't think we're talking about it. I don't think our judicial system, I'm a free gun guy, but if someone's on these types of drugs, I don't think they should have their guns. I think they should be taken from them in these cases. There are people who are just not well. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with trying to get them help by calling the authorities. And I think all of us need to be on the hook for this.
I think that's it. It's like, just call, just tip somebody off. But
and maybe not give these young people so many drugs.
Indeed, that's just that too. Matt Schlepp, always nice to see you.
Thanks, Greta.
The director of the CDC has been fired after 1 month on the job. Yesterday, the Department of Health and Human Services announced Susan Monarez was, quote, no longer director of the CDC. They did not provide a reason. Her lawyer, Mark Zaid, and Abby Lowell quickly released a statement. They said she's being targeted because she, quote, chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda, end quote. Her lawyers also say she's not fired and has not resigned. Earlier today, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt responded.
Her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't. So the president fired her, which he has every right to do.
Now the Washington Post and the Associated Press are reporting, both from anonymous sources. You know I don't like anonymous sources, but be that as it may, they both say that Jim O'Neill has been named as the acting head of the CDC. He is the Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services. Coming up, a gathering of American adversaries with a bunch of weapons? It doesn't sound good, does it? That when the record continues. It keeps happening, and it happened again last night. There was a major attack by Russia on Ukraine's capital. Russia launched drones and missiles on Kyiv. Ukrainian officials say Russia hit at least 20 locations in the city. That included a hit on the city center, which is rarely attacked. About 20 people were killed, dozens were injured. This is the first big attack by Russia since President Trump hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin nearly 2 weeks ago in Alaska. The Kremlin is defending its strike and is blaming Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says, quote, "The special military operation continues. You can see that attacks on Russian infrastructure and often on Russian civilian infrastructure by the Kyiv regime are also continuing. At the same time, Russia remains interested in continuing the negotiation process in order to achieve our goals through political and diplomatic means." United States Special Envoy to Ukraine and Russia and Silver Star recipient and many other awards in the military, General Keith Kellogg joins me. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to be with you, Greta.
I mean, I don't
Thank
go
you.
through that whole long list of the awards you won for your service as in the military, but I want to ask you about this one. Order of the Merit First Class. You got that from President Zelensky while you were in Ukraine recently.
Yeah, it was on their Independence Day. In fact, I didn't know about it until right before the ceremony, and I was sitting between Umarov, the former defense minister, and Andrei Yermak, who runs the Office of the Presidency, and I said, "I don't speak Ukrainian. What am I supposed to do?" And they said, "Don't worry, we'll tap you to tell you when you go up there. You just go up to receive it." And President Zelensky speaks English, so I had a chance to talk to him. So they're the one they hit me, and they said, "Okay, they just announced you." I said, "Okay," so we went out there, and it was really nice. It was Independence Day. It was a beautiful day. It's our 34th year of independence for Ukraine. Beautiful weather. I took a team in, had a great team that went in, and we had a chance to go to that. And then the following day, we had the National Prayer Breakfast, which was very impressive how they did it, and was able to speak at that as well. And then we came back out.
You know, I read stories about how when you are in Ukraine and Kyiv, the missiles stop. Russia doesn't, and so they particularly like your presence there. But last night, Russia amped up the strike.
Yeah, you know, and I made a comment about it today. Look, I've spent a lot of time in the military. I know targeting. I know how you target, what you're supposed to target. And I use the term today, egregious. And I think it's fairly accurate because it's going to impede the peace process. When you start attacking civilian targets like they're attacking, those were not military targets. You know, the British consulate was not a military target. The EU's consulate was not a military target. Those apartments, and I actually put pictures of somebody came in, are not military targets. And that's surely, it goes back to like what happened in World War II with the attacks on London. You try to beat down the population. Greta, I will tell you from being there numerous times, the Ukrainian people are very resolute right now. There's no love at all between these two nations right now with the people and what's happening. And it just makes it harder to get to a peace process. And that's my point is, look, if you want to get to a peace process, and I give Donald J. Trump full credit for this, that he's worked very hard to get to a peace relationship that he's trying to, which has not happened in the previous 3 years. He's talking to Putin, which is important. He's talking to Zelensky, which is important. He went to Alaska with Putin, which was critical. He brought in Zelensky into Washington, D.C. with 7 European leaders, which has not been done in the previous 3 years. He's got the alliance really tight. He's gotten to places where nobody's gotten to before. And this isn't his war. I mean, he inherited this war. And this war goes back to 2014 with Crimea. That was under Obama. So he's had to inherit all of this and try to make something out of it. And you've got to give him, the American people in the world have got to give him full credit for what he's doing in rallying the allies as well to get to an end state on this. And he understands it. Look, this war, the largest war in Europe since World War II, we're not talking 1,000 killed or 2,000 killed. We're talking about over hundreds of thousands of people killed. Civilians, men and women, soldiers. It's got to end. Sooner or later it will end because that's how wars end, through negotiations. And I think if anybody's going to get us there, Donald J. Trump will get us there.
Well, it's, you know, he said that it wasn't his war, it was Biden's war. It isn't even sort of the United States war. I mean, it's certainly more Western Europe has a greater fear because of what history has shown. But it seems to me, and you're the general, I'm not, but it's hard to settle a war if one side really doesn't show any interest in settling. And as an outsider looking at Putin, I see absolutely no indication, none, that he's seeking to settle it. And when you hit civilian structures like infrastructure like he did tonight, that only cements my view.
Yeah, I will say this with the team that President Trump has around him. They're looking at the options, they're working the options to get to an end state. And it's hard. Look, starting a war is easy. Ending a war is really, really hard. And he's got a great team in place to try to figure out ways to get to it. And you're going to have to give incentives to both sides to end this war. And that's what they're in the process of doing. And you look at him meaning Donald J. Trump bringing the European leaders to the White House a week ago. what kind of incentives could we apply to both? Now, those are decisions that the president's going to make. That's the reason he's the president. He makes those hard decisions. We don't. We can give advice, we give thoughts, recommendations, but at the end of the day, that's the president.
So what is next?
Well, I think the next step is we've got, to use a colloquial term, we've got the Ukrainians in the box. What I mean by in the box, they're in pretty good shape, meaning Zelensky says, I'm willing to go to a bilat, I'm willing to go to a trilat, I'm willing to do certain things, and he has. And now it's up to the Russians, I believe, to come and say, okay.
Which is where I said is I don't see Putin, any indication Putin wants to get into that.
Then the president has some options he can apply. He's got the sanctions option if he wants to go there, increased armament if he wants to go there, the alliance pressure that's there. I think the big thing that's going to get everybody to a point here, these things we're looking today at what we call security guarantees. What do they look like? Because the Ukrainians want to make sure that there's an end state, that they've got security. You know, you go back and they actually kind of go back and say, look, United States of America plus Russia, when you go back to some of these previous agreements, you said these were going to happen, like the Budapest Memorandum.
The 1993 one, Russia even agreed to protect Ukraine if it got rid of its nuclear weapons, and now it's invaded it.
And he said, the quote on that was, they would ensure, protect territorial integrity of Ukraine. That's it. Then you had Minsk I, Minsk II, you had the Istanbul Accords. So it's always been there. So what Ukraine is saying is, look, we're willing to go to a certain point, but we've got to have certain guarantees that you're actually going to protect us, not just words. What does this look like? And we're in the process, we mean the administration, is working on ways, and Marco Rubio is doing that, to come up with ways to do it. And they've got a great process going. The military came up with their thoughts. They've gone to the national security advisors. These nations got their thoughts. He's now with the foreign ministers, get their thoughts. He then compiles it, puts it together, brings it to President Trump, and then President Trump will make the decision. What do security guarantees look like? And get us to an end state. And I think that's kind of where we're at right now.
General Keith Kellogg, thank you, and welcome home, because I know you're probably tired. You just got back from Ukraine. Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Greta.
Looks like Vladimir Putin is going to take some time off from the war. He's going to China. In a few days, he will attend a military parade in Beijing. Guess who else is planning to be there? North Korea's Supreme Leader, Kim Jong-un. That means there will be Kim, Putin, and Xi Jinping all together, and they will be surrounded by weapons, tanks, and troops. The big military extravaganza parade is next Wednesday. It's meant to honor the end of World War II and hopefully not to discuss a new one. Coming up, President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, and Gaza. More on that when the record continues. Israel's expanded military operation in Gaza City will have, quote, devastating consequences. That warning by the UN Secretary General. Civilians are facing another deadly escalation as Israeli troops prepare to take over Gaza City. The military buildup is underway along the Gaza border. Planes and tanks have pounded the outskirts of Gaza City. This as Israeli leaders vow to press on with the planned offensive. Meanwhile, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner joined the United States and Israeli officials to discuss post-war Gaza. Israel calling the evacuation of Gaza City inevitable. There were no Palestinians involved in the post-Gaza talks. Tonight, Middle East correspondent Zach Anders is in Tel Aviv, where it is 1:34 a.m. in the morning. Zach?
And Greta, while these meetings take place in Washington, there has been a remarkable turn of events to my north in Lebanon. UNIFIL, the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, has announced they will end their peacekeeping mission by the end of 2026. Although interim is in their name, they have been positioned as a peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon since 1978. This while an announcement from the state of Lebanon and the Lebanese army is expected on Sunday, where Lebanon will reportedly unveil their plan to disarm Hezbollah, that terror proxy of Iran that is inside their country. And it seems like it's more so a convincing Hezbollah to disarm through economic means. Hezbollah has rejected any calls to disarm earlier this week, with their leader making statements. You'll, of course, remember Hassan Nasrallah was killed by Israel. The new leader, Hassam Qayyum, has again this week said they will not disarm. They will continue to be a standing military inside Lebanon. Now, this week, U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham, he was in Beirut yesterday, and it's tied together to all of the moving pieces, this big puzzle that's in place here. He met with Lebanese officials and reviewed these disarmament plans for Hezbollah. He then flew to Tel Aviv and met with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. Him and we spoke this afternoon. Here's where he thinks things stand.
It's a necessity. I left a strong impression on the Lebanese that you're doing the right thing for calling for the disarmament of Hezbollah. There is no way Lebanon can survive and flourish with Hezbollah still intact, having heavy weapons. That won't happen unless there's a credible backup plan of military force. So I left a strong impression the best I could to the Lebanese Christians, Sunni, Shiite community. You made the right decision, call for the disarmament, but you have to follow through.
Now, where this could potentially involve the United States, and what Senator Graham is stating is that there is potential for opening up in the future possible defense agreements with the state of Lebanon. But that's if they can tackle this massive issue of trying to get Hezbollah to disarm. It's also incredibly remarkable, Greta, as you watch what has taken place here in the region. Hezbollah has absorbed more than 400 strikes from Israel since the ceasefire last November, and they have not responded. So there's some big questions about whether or not their military capacity is even there at this moment to be able to engage at the level that we saw them before that Israel-Hezbollah war took place late last year. There's certainly been a severe amount of degrading to their capabilities, but the question going forward with the supply routes, and again, this is just a massive puzzle that we're working with the fall of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the new leadership in Syria has done something remarkable and has, from what is availably reported, cut off the Hezbollah supply routes that were coming from Iran. And they did that to gain favor with the West. And they also have some long-standing problems with Hezbollah as well there, this new leadership in Syria. So Hezbollah, as it stands going forward, does not seem to have the same resupply routes from Iran anyways. This is a really great opportunity to try and undercut them, and that's what we see these U.S. leaders saying. Now is the moment to try and disarm Hezbollah, or at least take away their heavy weapons. And Greta, another major moment in Yemen as Israeli aircraft bombed key Houthi leadership near the capital city of Sana'a. Israeli media reports the IDF intended to decapitate Houthi leadership today. Reports claim 10 Houthi ministers had gathered and were in close proximity to one another. It sounds like they were all gathered in the same home. It's unclear at this hour who has been killed within that terror organization's leadership structure, but this did look like a very severe blow to the Houthis here. Again, we're just waiting to hear who exactly was eliminated in this strike. Greta?
Zach, I'm going to go back to the UN peacekeepers leaving the border just north of Israel in Lebanon. That's been going on for so many decades, and they've protected the settlements just inside Israel. And that's been a very aggressive area from Hezbollah. Is Israel content with those peacekeepers leaving?
They are. They were the ones that advocated for it. They support this decision. The Israeli mindset here is also that they've kind of established a buffer zone now in southern Lebanon. During the course of the war, they brought in their bulldozers. They tore down a lot of structures, buildings that they said were being used for terror infrastructure. They sealed off tunnels. They filled them with concrete. And they still maintain a heavy presence in southern Lebanon and have pushed back. Not necessarily out of the range of those ATGMs, the anti-tank guided missiles, which Hezbollah had a bountiful, an abundance of those style of weapons, a range of about 3-4 miles with a clear line of sight. They've pushed back a considerable amount. So those communities, they think, are in a much better shape. When you ask them whether or not they're going to, the Israelis, whether or not they're going to stay in southern Lebanon, they won't give you that answer, but you certainly get the impression that because they're there now and no one's making them leave, that they have no reason not to leave anytime in the future here. There's also the element of UNIFIL. They don't have the same countries supplying the troops before. The countries like Ireland have pulled out their peacekeepers, and they don't want to be part of a mission that was deadly to these peacekeepers as well. So many nations weren't providing the same support to UNIFIL as they were before.
Zach Anders in Tel Aviv, where it's now 1:40 in the morning. Thank you, Zach. Coming up, President Trump is ready to send the National Guard to Chicago, but Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker does not want his help. That one, the record continues. President Trump's crackdown on crime in Washington, D.C. could be a format seen in other cities. One of those cities, Chicago. Yesterday, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, though, said this.
We're responding to what Donald Trump is saying about Chicago, and he's, talking about how somehow you can't walk down the street in Chicago and experience a peaceful, beautiful city. That's just wrong. And you would think that if you're going to take this truly drastic action, that you would have to have a drastic situation on the ground, and that you'd want to know what the facts are, and so you'd call people who are on the ground who are living it every day, like the Chicago PD or the Illinois State Police, but nobody's received any calls, and particularly not me. How about help us hire police? Instead of sending troops into the city of Chicago, how about help us with violence interruption, which is something, by the way, that we have some really good teams of people that do. And now he's taking money away from that. We have terrific troops, but they don't belong on the streets of America.
National correspondent Joe Moeller joins me from Chicago. Joe?
Hey there, Greta. Well, a lot of people here in Chicago are talking about the potential of National Guard troops being on the streets here in downtown and especially in the south side. But there are some areas people say, hey, don't walk in that part of town. So a lot of people know that here in Chicago. But I'm in the Gold Coast area. This is a more affluent neighborhood. Very busy night here tonight. We got reaction from folks who were just sitting out here having coffee about this. And many do say that crime is an issue. You're seeing obviously what Trump's doing in Washington, D.C. to crack down on the issues there. Do you think it would be helpful in certain parts of Chicago?
Well, why not? Yeah, I'm a Trump guy too.
Do you think it would be helpful here?
No, it is a Chicago problem. Let the Chicago mayor and governor of Illinois solve the problem here.
500 murders last year, and only second to Africa. You got to solve it, and they never do.
Now, the plan would reportedly involve 1,700 troops assisting with immigration enforcement and public safety. The reports are also stating that this could happen as soon as next month. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is against this. He has been touting that homicides are down here in the city. Last year, there were 573 murders, according to the Chicago Police Department. They claim that's down 8% from the year before. I also went to the south side earlier today to talk to people about crime there.
Do you think sending National Guard troops would help the problem or do anything?
Yeah, I think it would help.
Something should be done, whether it's the idea of National Guard or the idea of National Guard coming in and giving police like ideals and better tactics.
And I do feel like there's a slight need to address the crime that's going on out here, but I definitely feel like the way that the government's going about it is completely wrong.
All right, back out here live in a very busy downtown Chicago. Everyone I just about talked to said there is an issue with crime here in the city. Just about one person out of the over a dozen people said it's not a problem. But I did also reach out to the National Guard here in Illinois. They say they don't have orders as of right now to be here out on the streets. But President Trump did post on Truth earlier today, hinting that this could be happening and said, stay tuned. Greta.
Joe Moeller, thank you. Coming up, the very colorful former Congressman George Santos is back. Well, kind of. He's communicating from inside federal prison. That when the record continues. We have a new note from prison by former Congressman George Santos. Lately, he has been sort of blogging from a federal prison in New Jersey. For the last month, this prison has become his home and will be his home for the next 86 months. A Long Island newspaper has been publishing Santos reports, and today we got a new one. The expelled Republican congressman writes about prison, quote, "It's meant to be difficult, but there is a line, a moral line between punishment and outright neglect of human dignity. When you house 48 men in a dorm with poor air quality due to a broken AC system and black mold on the ceiling, when the bathroom is unsanitary and falling apart, when you serve food that is clearly past its good-through date, you are not enforcing justice. You are stripping people of their basic rights." Now, Santos does say there are some good moments in prison. He says, quote, "Ferton," which is the prison, "is surrounded by a wooded, almost pastoral-like area, and it's home to a few permanent residents of the furry and scaly variety. We have 4 cats roaming the grounds, one of whom just had a litter of 5 kittens. As an animal lover, I can't help myself. I've spent plenty of my commissary money on tuna to feed them." Santos goes on to write, quote, "Those cats bring us a sense of normalcy, a moment of tenderness in an otherwise harsh environment. They are a blessing, a morale boost, and a reminder that life in all its forms finds a way, even here." Santos continues, quote, "This week alone, I had 2 unusual encounters with some of our other neighbors. One is a small frog that nearly got crushed underfoot. Without hesitation, I scooped it up and released it safely beyond the fence line of the prison," end quote. Day 5 of testimony in the Donna Adelson murder trial. Today, jurors watched undercover video of a key meetup at a Miami Beach restaurant. An undercover agent sitting just a few tables away recorded a conversation between Donna Adelson's son, Charlie, and his ex-girlfriend. On the tape, the two were trying to figure out why a gang member would approach Donna Adelson and try to blackmail her. Soon after that meeting, Charlie Adelson was indicted, and then he was convicted. Prosecutors are hoping that same tape will provide Donna Adelson's involvement. Prosecutors also played more phone calls between Charlie and his mother. The judge instructed the defendant, Donna Adelson, to put on the headphones and listen to the calls, but I'm not sure it made much of an impact. Here's Donna Adelson wearing the headphones not the right way. Coming up, guess who got forced into early retirement? That when the record continues. The mascot for the University of Colorado Boulder is retiring at just 5 years old. The mascot is a live buffalo. The retiring buffalo is named Ralphie. Ralphie is actually a female, and her name is not really Ralphie, it's Ember. Ember has been playing Ralphie, and she is now headed to a more relaxed life on a ranch. This comes after running onto the football field ahead of players before every game. Ember, pretending to be Ralphie, lasted 25 home games or 4 seasons. So what's up? Why the early retirement? Well, apparently Ember had a lack of interest in running. The school says the ranch is the best place for Ember. There she will be doing her favorite hobby, which isn't running. The University of Colorado is looking for a new Ralphie. Rob Schmidt tonight is up next.